decided tonight would be a good time to have a guest on, and so allow me to introduce uh, my good friend Vic over here. Vic is an English teacher. He's creative writing MFA, and he's also one of my dearest friends from college. And I also uh, coerced, manipulated him into playing Silent Hill however many years ago. And how many have you played at this point?
I, Honestly, I recently was looking at it, and there's only a few that I haven't. I've played remake of two. I played three, four, Downpour, Shattered Memories, PT if you count that.
Mm, I
What
count it.
was the Hidden Message, the free one?
Oh, the short message, yeah.
Short message. And I haven't played Homecoming, Origins, or the first Silent Hill.
Gotcha.
But I think that's pretty much all of them, right?
Uh, yeah. So
All the major
yeah, all the
console
major
entries.
ones. There's like people always like to reference the Silent Hill One play novel, which came out for like the Game Boy or something. But yeah, there are a few random things, but yeah, that's most of them. Um,
Yeah, and what's crazy is, I've played a lot of games, but I played all those games except for the remake of two and I guess, well, PT. I borrowed from you. So like I
oh
don't
yeah,
own them because they cost too much because of collectors,
yeah,
so it's weird. Like I've played them, but you just lent them to me. So that's pretty interesting. That's why like, I'm excited for the new one. It's like, oh, I can
yeah,
buy this one.
yeah.
Ian and I can play it at the same time for the
Th-
first time.
that's kind of what's going to be fun about Silent Hill F is that for a lot of people, like a lot of people who have played the series before, and but also people who are new to the series, and a lot of people watching the stream, that it is going to be a whole new experience for everyone. And we
Yeah,
still
so when
don't
I text you, oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
and we still don't know how much it's going to tie in lore wise to the rest of the series.
And when I text you stuff about it, I'm looking forward to the power dynamic shift here,
Uh,
where we both don't know,
yeah.
Whereas I'd be like, oh, I just noticed this thing, and you're like, how interesting.
The number of times you messaged me on Messenger about the Silent Hill 2 remake, and we're just like, so this happened. I don't know quite what to make of it, or oh, I have this theory, and I'm like, ah, yes, yes, that's interesting.
Hmm,
um,
quite interesting. He has no idea what's going on.
but yeah, I'm having Vic on tonight to talk about the story and the game mechanics and stuff. Very quick spoiler warning, as usual. As with the rest of this stream thus far, we're going to be digging deep into spoilers, including like potentially the endings of Silent Hill 2, and potentially other parts of the series because you have played other parts of the series. So if you don't want to get spoiled on anything, feel free to like hold off or maybe just wait for the gameplay part if you just want to watch the Silent Hill 2 stuff. I hope you stick around though, because this should be an interesting discussion. Because this was your first time playing Silent Hill 2. You never played the 2001 game.
No, and I'm usually a purist like that. Like when the 2018 God of War came out, I went back and played the fucking PS2 games,
Mm,
which didn't age well, by the way, right? So that I knew like, oh, so this is what's going on. But eh,
yeah,
how, right? I don't,
yeah.
it's hard to get them,
There,
So I was like, yeah, I'll just
yeah, there are a lot of people on Reddit that get on people's case for like, oh, you should play the original first. And it's like, my guy, the if you can find copy of Silent Hill 2 on the PS2 out in the wild, it's like $230 or something. Uh,
Literally less than a week ago texted you. I was at the shop by me that sells
yeah,
retro games, and I was like, "Oh, look, Black Label Silent Hill 1 complete in box with manual." It was like $230 or
yeah,
something. Like, yeah.
yeah,
So, but anyway, yep, it was my first time, and I yeah, I have opinions.
yeah. And I would love to hear them. Where do you want to start?
So as I had warned you, when I was preparing notes, I guess I went right into my teacher fugue state and came up with all these like topic headings. And I swear, if you asked me to, I would have made like slides, you know.
Mhm.
But anyway, I wanted to start by saying I loved it. Just overall, this is a great game. I don't have a ton of criticisms. I do find horror games a bit paradoxical because they're a fun experience to me. I love horror, but they're also a very stressful experience. So like motivating myself to play them can be hard sometimes. When I finished this, I felt relief that like the anxiety was over. But also great satisfaction because I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. Um, this game in particular was enjoyable to me because I thought it created an incredible atmosphere. I wanted to talk about that.
Mhm.
It had great attention to small details, and then the story genuinely interested me. It kept me invested, and you did a great job stringing me along. Where I think James might have done something bad about this and that, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
maybe, yeah, maybe you should keep playing.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll admit right away that a lot of stuff I'm going to sort of bring up to make my major points is straight from Wikipedia. But as a teacher, I can tell all of your followers that all of your teachers were wrong. Wikipedia is fine. Um, and I put some bullet points together from my extensive Wikipedia deep dive about stuff I thought was interesting and relevant.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I can go right to the first one if you want. Just right into.
Yeah, yeah. I had a thought, but now it's escaping me. Um, uh,
I talk too much.
no,
Sorry.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say, like, uh, it's one of the interesting things for me where when it comes to like not spoiling people on this game, like Cleo's been very careful about that in her own playthrough. Like she talks about a lot of the story, but she specifically goes out of her way to not spoil what James did. And the thing that's always interesting for me is like I think if you can go into this game blind, you should because I think it's such a satisfying experience. And the funny thing is, I in some ways never got that experience. When I played the original game, I I've mentioned this on stream before, but I got about halfway through the game and I had started like going to a Silent Hill forum because I was like, oh, I'm really into this now, and I got spoiled on it in the dumbest way. What happened? Like, it was some joke topic, and someone like people were just throwing out like jokes to add on to the joke, and some one of them was like, yeah, the ice cream shop that reminds me of my wife who I killed, or something like that. And I was like, what? Oh no! But I've always said it's a testament to how good the game is and how good the storytelling is that even knowing that, I still was like emotionally affected by the ending because it's more than just about that reveal. It's like the ramifications of it, the reasons behind it, and that sort of stuff.
Sure, yeah, and spoilers have become a serious problem.
Mm,
Like, I, it used to just be like, just be careful, like what you click on and stuff, but like, it's bad.
yeah.
Like I get worried. Like, I want to go see Superman with my son when it comes out, and we're thinking like, we might not be able to go like the weekend it comes out, and I'm like, "Ugh, I'm gonna have to just not go on the internet for like several days, like.
Yeah.
but but I hear you. But yeah, no, and it's not just about like the atmosphere. I think is huge. That was my first thing was I called it the David atmosphere.
Ah, yes.
Um, well, when you look on Wikipedia for Silent Hill 2,
Hmm.
it has a series of
Oh,
artistic.
I understand now.
You're gonna get it, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a series of artistic influences.
Yeah.
One of them was Alfred Hitchcock, who is not David, so I didn't mention him. But we've got David Cronenberg, David Fincher, and David Lynch,
Hmm.
and I decided to address those. Um, so, like, first one, David Cronenberg, Fast and Loose here, known for sci-fi horror that explores visceral bodily transformation, infectious diseases, the intertwining of the psychological, physical, and sometimes technological. Um, so I feel like you can
Yeah.
see Cronenberg. And the other world feels so diseased. It feels infectious. Everything looks so corrupted.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't think there's like anything that has done body horror since Cronenberg that hasn't been influenced by Cronenberg in some way.
Yeah, it's like there's before Cronenberg, there's after. Yeah, the fact that the environment quite literally is a reflection of James' psyche.
Mhm.
The mannequins, I think, involve some very strategic narrative body horror.
Mm.
And the boss fights, I mean all of them. I don't we're not going to go through them all, but
Yeah.
I remember the painting. I don't know his name. It's the girl's dad.
Oh, the abstract daddy.
Yes, abstract. I knew it
Yeah.
was something weird. But yeah, that's very Cronenberg. Like he
Mhm.
became the painting, and is now
So
chasing you and wants to like smother you. And it was
so
like,
Vic,
yeah,
I'm might be about to blow your mind here, but he isn't meant to be a painting.
maybe that's just the way I'm remembering. I actually played this a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
I've
it's all
played
good. It's meant to be a bed frame.
a bed frame. I was
Yeah.
thinking, is it like a door? I know it's like, I
I
don't
had
know,
some
but
friends who thought it was a door, and
yeah,
it does kind of evoke those things. But I think considering Angela's story, it's meant to be a bed frame, which is so much more
that's
upsetting.
it. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That fits just as
Yeah,
well. I guess I thought painting because of the way it sort of has it's like stretches. It looks like he's sort of like
yeah, it's
melting
almost like
into.
canvas, the way that the
Yeah,
kind of skin stretches over stuff. But yeah, it's
but I mean,
in any
but
case, it's very
Cronenberg,
unsettling. Yeah.
very very Cronenberg, and then um, sorry, just rolling along here.
Yep.
David Fincher, right? Known for visceral movies, often exploring themes of martyrdom, alienation, dehumanization of both culture and society. Characters that are usually troubled, discontented, flawed outsiders, outcasts, loners, misfits. You know, suffering from loneliness, stuff like that. And in a lot of his best known films, the pressure and or obsession of these characters often leads to their downfall.
Yeah.
James even kind of looks like a character in a David Fincher movie.
Yeah.
He's very broody. And what I thought was interesting was you kind of immediately sympathize with him as the protagonist. Like when you start the
Mhm.
game, you're like, what's he been through? Like what's he
Mhm.
looking for? All that, even though he's very much the villain of this story. you know, like, um, so yeah, like I get Seven vibes.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I get
um,
Fight Club as well. The idea of
yeah, a
like
little
not
bit.
being able to remember something you did. It's not necessarily a split personality, but it that sort of sense of like, oh, I'm not remembering everything about my life or what is happening in it.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of Club energy in that sense of like, oh, like the revelation of
Yeah.
like, oh, right.
I remember
Um,
years ago when I played Silent Hill 2 and I went to Wikipedia immediately afterwards. I think it was cited on the list of like uh, mind fucks in like television and media. Just like the concept of a mind fuck being like, oh, that moment of revelation that just turns everything you knew on your head, and kind of yeah, blows your mind.
yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, Fincher makes sense, and it's
Mhm.
sort of that dirty sepia filter.
Yeah.
And then David Lynch, um, and as I'm sure if it's not obvious, I just sort of took out some lines from Wikipedia. So like
Mm.
his films have been said to evoke a dreamlike quality of mystery or menace through
Mm.
striking visual imagery and frequently combine surreal or sinister elements with mundane everyday environments.
Yeah.
I feel like if you showed someone Eraserhead and told them it was a Silent Hill movie, that
I
tracks.
mean, the Sync Baby in PT is literally just like it. There's no way they weren't thinking of Eraserhead when they made that.
Yeah, no, like it's you're gonna do the weird creepy baby thing. It's like,
Yeah,
well, we
yeah,
live in a world where Eraserhead exists, so you got it from that.
yeah.
So, um, but yeah, no, the surreal. I think that's the key thing here
Yeah,
with Lynch is just the complete non-realness.
yeah,
Like the just this something's not real, but how
yeah.
much? You know, which parts are real? I'm sure something must be.
Hmm.
You know, and that uncertainty of that I think is very very Lynchian.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into the controversy, and by the controversy I mean the controversy in the Silent Hill fandom. It's not important. But it's the like controversy for so many people with the acting in this game is this idea that like, oh well, the acting in the original game, a lot of people say it's like clunky, but it's like no, that's intentional because it's supposed to be like David Lynchian and stuff. And I'm like, and they're almost the reason I thought of it now is like because it almost implies that the new game isn't Lynchian, and I'm glad that you're like bringing it up because it's like the new game is still very David Lynch. It's just the people act a little bit more like people. But even then, like you were just saying today, the way that James reacts to situation or his lack of reaction to certain situations feels very David Lynch in certain ways where it's like how is he not just screaming his head off or like just freaking out at everything?
Like when he's in the movie theater and what's his name is just scooping melted ice cream into his mouth
Yeah.
and like you know and like we're not addressing it, you know, like it's just like yeah, we're just gonna talk, you know. And
Yeah.
it's like that's messed up, right? Like you know.
Yeah, it's so interesting when it comes to James's characterization because there are certain things that can I feel like we can attribute to like oh that was another thing you said that I kind of want to touch on. I don't want to like completely derail you, but there are a lot of things you're bringing up that I find really interesting and I kind of want to highlight. Like you talked about specifically at the beginning of the game, it's very easy to get on James's side, and I think that's so purposeful. And I think a lot of like Cleo likes to talk about it in terms of like we are playing James at his best immediately after he has been James at his worst, and he's discovering who he was at his worst. And
For
so,
sure. I mean, and it's the protagonist problem where, you know, because someone's the main character, you root for them,
yeah,
and it's like why in the Penguin series, I don't want to spoil. You didn't warn people about spoilers for that.
okay. I haven't seen it
There's
either, so better not.
there's a particularly shocking and uncomfortable moment at the end, um, and you know it was very divisive. And I understood. I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. And then they came out and they said like, yeah, we really wanted to just sort of remind everyone that he's a villain and he's not a good guy.
Yeah,
You know, yeah, he's the protagonist, so like you're rooting for him, and that's normal and fine. But like, he's not good.
yeah,
You know, um, so yeah, it's
yeah. Um, yeah, like on that note, like I think certain things about the way James reacts to the different characters, like Eddie, for example, I think some of that can be attributed to James in general. Like he seems to handle people pretty well. Like particularly, I think with his the way that Luke Roberts performs him in the remake. Like when he meets Angela in that room with the knife, he is very like he does a good job of like being sensitive to the situation, and he doesn't
mhm.
say all the right things, but he's still like the line delivery that always sticks with me is like after Angela says like are you afraid, and then she kind of pulls back and is like sorry I don't know what's going on with me, and he's just like it's okay, and it's this very gentle sort of like hey we're gonna get through this. And like even with Eddie in the theater moment, he notices Eddie doing this very unhinged thing, and he almost tries to make a joke of it like oh it's good to see you got your appetite back, and then Eddie takes it like the worst possible way. You just see it on his face. So it's so interesting. Yeah, just him as a character and the way that he navigates this world in ways that like sometimes uh, make sense and sometimes don't make sense.
Well, that actually rolls right into my next thing I wanted to mention. The my heading here says the story. What did you do, James? Um, because that was sort of my prevailing thought for most of the game.
Hmm.
So, again, from Wikipedia, the story was allegedly inspired by Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. As someone who teaches classic literature, I must out myself and admit that I've actually never read it. So I had to look up
Turn in
information
your
about it.
English teacher
Um,
card.
yeah, I know. It's not really high school
I
level. All
haven't
right.
read
So
it.
anyway, um, but the bottom line is that it's essentially about the ends justifying the means, lying to yourself about how you could live with a horrible choice if it meant having a better life afterward, which obviously doesn't work out. And that's obviously a lot of what's going on in Silent Hill 2. So I actually think that's a faithful inspiration there. Um, right from the start, I was giving the game a lot of credit, which I think is risky because a lot of times in video games, things are just you can just take them at face value. It's like, oh, it's just a monster. It's scary. Don't overthink it, you
Hmm.
know. But I mean, I think one of the big moments for me that kind of really hooked me and made me think like, okay, I actually think this is a pretty good game was I started to notice some patterns, and I remember texting you about it. I specifically noticed some stuff in regard to women,
Hmm.
and I was like, I noticed, all the enemies are these like mannequins. They got the long, smooth legs, no faces. Some of them look like they're in like BDSM gear. We got the
Hmm.
nurses in the little outfits and whatnot.
Hmm.
And then there's fucking Marie, which just felt gross from the start. I remember I was texting you.
Oh, you mean
I'm like,
Maria?
Marie, did I say Marie? Yeah, I'm
It,
sorry.
it's all good.
I By the way, I don't want to seem like, oh, I'm a poser. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I am, but like no, I'm bad at remembering names,
It's all
especially
good.
when it's a normal name like Maria.
Yeah.
I know they sound similar, Mary
Mm.
and something that's very similar to anyway, it's like, oh, it's basically his wife, but if she was like a stripper.
Mm.
So I remember texting you and I was like, James has a problem with women somehow. I
Mm.
think he may have done something bad to Mary. And that must have been a very like, moment
Yeah.
for you where you're like, you're so close.
No, absolutely. I'm like, no, you're picking up what this game is putting down.
Yeah.
You're also picking
Um,
up on like I never want to put too fine a point on it, but like Masahiro Ito's artwork in general, like this is not a knock against him, but his even his non-Silent Hill artwork kind of tends it skews in that direction when it comes to his portrayal of women. Um,
sure. I mean, it's, you know, and that could just be nothing,
yeah,
right? That could, lots of games have
I think
sexy,
it's,
scary
but I
stuff,
think it is very purposeful in Silent Hill too.
Yeah, sure. It felt like it. It's something about it felt, especially, what it was for me
Mm.
was right one of the earliest ones that you encounter um has the legs with no feet, and then the arms are also legs,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, the mannequins.
And there's no head. And I was like, something about that seems so utterly objectifying,
Yeah,
and then the next enemy I think you encounter after that is the puking ones that have the like skin tight, and the
yeah.
arm,
So
again, no arms, right? Like,
yeah,
the arms are restrained. um it just it's like, okay, two could be a coincidence, but then there's the nurses, and it's like,
yeah. Well, and
like, okay.
well, and also the armless, the lying figure, the vomiting one, which that one you actually meet first. Um, they
Oh,
also,
really?
yeah, that's the first enemy that you fight. But they also, I don't know if you ever picked up on this. They
Gotta keep
have,
this up before people realize I haven't actually played the game.
but they're wearing like pumps. They're wearing like high heeled shoes.
Right, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like
Yeah,
there's some very specific details that are being put in here, and you wouldn't just throw that in there for the heck of it.
right, exactly. Um, so, all right. So the next thing I would be the endings,
Hmm.
because that's the payoff. I desperately, I felt like that was it. Eventually, it was just, I just want to know what happened.
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on. Um, and I wasn't even that focused on the ending. I knew there were multiple endings.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really concerned about it. I just I wanted the knowledge. I wanted to know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've said there's the point system, there's all the different ways to earn and
Yeah.
I didn't have the patience to look all that up,
No, it's
honestly.
all good.
I couldn't comment on it, but I just wanted to mention a couple things about the endings. I did title this "James is so stupid." Um,
Classic heroes
um,
would agree with you.
yeah, well, a lot of the endings are he's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, no, James, no. Um, I sent you that text where the ones I don't know. I don't want to spoil too. I know you said it's full spoilers. The
Yeah.
one I'm going to avoid is the one that you're going for now.
Yeah.
But I can talk about the others, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Um, joke ones aside, um, the one that I got
Mm-hmm.
was Leave, and that was authentic. Like I never
Mm-hmm.
played the game before. I wasn't trying to do anything specific,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like it. I
That's
don't like
fair.
it because it's too convenient.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is the absolute safest way to end this?
Mm-hmm.
He confronted his guilt and he decided to move on and he takes the little girl and just goes on with his life. And I'm like, fuck that. No, I don't think so. I don't like that one at all.
Yeah.
Um, And I told you there's Maria, which is a very upsetting one,
Yeah.
which is sort of an anti-ending where it's like, oh, you weren't listening at all, were you? Um, which is, mm.
Yeah.
And then there's In Water, which I won't say. I'll just say I that's the one that I thought fit best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, narratively, it's like where do I want this to go?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing. Sometimes a proper ending isn't necessarily the one that you want or like the best.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is why, honestly, In Water, you could make an argument might be the best ending. Um, it's not actually the one I like the best. That would be the one you're going for now.
Oh.
Stillness.
Yeah.
And I will just say, if anyone's, you can log this away for later. The reason I like it is because I feel like it's an ending that James deserves even more so than In Water. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
thing that is added to it where it's like In Water plus this,
Yeah.
and I feel like that addition is is more meaningful.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can leave it at that.
It's really interesting too because a lot of I've been going on the Silent Hill Reddit for since this game came out essentially because now there's Silent Hill stuff to talk about, and it's really interesting to see that like newcomers and veterans alike, like there are a lot of varying opinions about the game. There are a lot of veterans who hate the game, there are a lot of newcomers who hate the game, and there's also a lot of veterans who love the game and a lot of newcomers who love the game. But the consensus in general is for the people who liked the game, whether they were a newcomer or a veteran, stillness seems to win out as like the ending that people are liking the most or appreciate the most. I think even more particularly for the people who played the original because it is kind of this uh um it in a certain way acknowledges the history that is there of having like and that's the other thing that's interesting about stillness is you have to get in water first in order to be able to unlock stillness, and
I didn't know that.
I think that is particularly significant.
Oh, it absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but that makes sense. Because, like
Yeah.
I said, it's that ending plus this other thing.
Yes.
And
um
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
I'll tell you just because it's an interesting point of discussion. Like, I've been playing this playthrough to get the stillness ending, and so in my head, even though it's not a role playing game, I've kind of been playing it with that idea in mind that like, oh, I'm playing this specifically to work towards that as a character as well, and so thinking about the different elements that you have to uh, engage with in order to get the stillness ending. Like there's a key that you find very early on in the game that you can only get if you have the chainsaw, because it's before you get your first melee weapon, and you get the chainsaw
Mhm.
pretty early in the new game plus. And then there are these notes that are in different places in the game, like at the apartments toward the beginning of the game. In the front office, there's like a journal entry from the superintendent. That's just like, or the uh, why is my brain blanking on words? Um, the landlord or whoever, like the guy who runs the apartment building. It's just this note that's talking about room 202, I think, which is where you like first meet Pyramid Head. And a lot of the stuff in that room seems to be like reminiscent of stuff that may have come from James and Mary's home. And there's this journal entry that talks about like no one wants to rent out that apartment anymore. It's like there's something still there and needs to move on. And then in the hospital, there's another note from the director that talks about how I think it's supposed to be from the director, or maybe it's just from a doctor. It's like it talks about uh, like cardiectomy successful. Like cardiectomy would be removal of the heart, and so it's all this stuff that is just like adding to this kind of like emotional through line of like this story that in game has potentially been going on and on, because I don't know if you're familiar with, like, some people have theorized that James is going through a time loop, and a lot of people don't like that theory. um, but it's one that, like, if you believe in it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. This is a game where, like, I think there are a bunch of different things like that can be open to interpretation, and whatever makes the most sense to you uh, is it works for you. But also on a metatextual level, acknowledging the baggage of this game coming out 20 years after the original, and the people that have carried that story with them, and it's like, okay, is it time to move on from it? Uh, it is.
It's
I'm
an
I'm really
interesting thought.
excited to get to the end, because I have watched the Stillness ending, so I basically know what happens in it. But I've been avoiding rewatching it because I want to experience it now, having had this whole like slightly different version of the story experienced, and see how that affects my interpretation of the ending.
Yeah, fair enough. And then there's, Bliss and Rebirth,
Rebirth, yeah,
and they're like fine. Like
yeah,
I get it, but again, they feel those fall under James is so stupid. Like no, man, no.
yeah. Like
Um,
you never see if the rebirth like ritual actually worked. And bliss i bliss I really like as an additional ending. Like it's not the ending that I would say like, oh, this is like the definitive ending or anything, but I like it because it explores something that the original didn't explore, and it also feels very Twilight Zone. um
a little bit, kind of like leaving it open ended. Like, what does that mean? Is he dead?
yeah,
Like that's kind of like, it's fine, but. The last thing I wanted to mention, I don't want to run out of time or anything,
it's
is
all good.
the
This is
the
very casual.
the gameplay mechanics.
Yes,
If we can throw that in for a
absolutely.
minute. And this is from me,
Yeah.
not Wikipedia, because I've played a lot of games. Um, so at this point, like we've said, I've played the majority of Silent Hill games, thanks to you. And I would honestly say that in general, they're designed more like interactive stories and less like video games. You know,
Yeah.
um, like for example, the helplessness, like in most horror games, even in survival horror games, when you're at a disadvantage, you still usually feel armed with something like weaponry, something that reassures you. You know, um, the one that comes to mind that I'm sure, because there's a lot out there, and I'm sure I'm not always right about it, but like what is it, Outlast, where all you have is like a camera with a light or whatever.
Yeah.
um Whatever, but the idea is like, okay, but that's the mechanic. All right, I've got the
Yeah.
light, okay, fine. But there's a sort of reassurance that these are the mechanics of the game. They won't change, they won't betray you, unless, I don't know, there's a cinematic or something that you can't control anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of the fear in horror games will come from jump scares, um or the general dread of what's hiding around the corner. I love Dead Space, but a lot of that was just I don't want something to jump out at me. I don't want something to jump out at me. You know, like, um, so that manufactured sort of anxiety. Um, in most Silent Hill games, however, you're usually just playing as like a regular ass person,
Hmm.
someone with really, really no special skills, and they have very little knowledge of what's going on. It's kind of as close as you can get to just being in the game yourself, which I'm sure is intentional. And you get weapons. They aren't like that useful. Like I've played games before that really shortchange you on ammunition, so I overcorrect where it's like I'll never use the gun, you know. You know,
Hmm.
so until a boss fight, because then I'm like, so I actually beat the bosses pretty quickly because I have all the ammo saved up. Um, but anyway, yeah. So like the drive in
Hmm.
Silent Hill games in general, I think is the exploration.
Yeah.
And you have to pay attention because, lots of stupid little details are meaningful. That's not always the case. A lot of times if you find a stupid little detail, it's an Easter egg.
Mm.
Like they just put it in there for fun. In
Hmm.
Silent Hill, it's like everything means something,
Hmm.
you know? Um, and then that makes me overthink. Or
Oh,
then I'm looking
you're
around
not the
like,
only
ooh, that
one.
means what's that?
Yeah.
So yeah, no. So that's something that I like about them is
Hmm.
they are the story is and the characters are all the way up here,
Hmm.
because by a lot of other metrics, a lot of classic loved Silent Hill games are actually not very good video games.
Yeah.
Um,
The mechanics can be very clunky at times.
Yeah, where it's almost like, well, we're trying to tell a story, and unfortunately, this was the medium we were given.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of is how it feels sometimes. Is well, we're gonna have to make it work as a video game somehow.
Yeah.
Um, that's being cruel. I think
Yeah,
that
no.
sometimes it just kind of feels that way. I think video game logic helps a lot too. Like I've played enough games that I'm like, well, it probably wants you to do something like this.
Hmm.
Um, so that that helps too. But anyway, yeah, and jump scares versus dread. Like
Hmm.
I hate jump scares so much.
Yeah.
Not just because they suck and nobody likes to be jump scared, but I mean like when it comes to horror, it's like as soon as something's using jump scares, it loses my respect.
They can be
It's
very cheap.
yeah, it's like okay, well then you're not really trying to like make me fear what's happening or think about what's happening and be disturbed by it.
Hmm.
You just are going for cheap thrills. It's just a haunted house ride. Um, I could be totally wrong about this. Maybe it was a glitch or maybe I don't know, but I could have sworn that there were times in this game where the radio that's supposed to crackle and warn you that enemies
Hmm.
were nearby, which totally eliminates jump scares, right? It's
Yeah.
like, well, they're around here somewhere, and I like that a lot. I actually really, really appreciated that. I felt like sometimes it didn't work.
So I can speak to that. Um, uh, the mannequins specifically are the one creature that in the remake, also in the remake specifically, um, uh, will sometimes not trigger the radio, and it's specifically if they're like trying to hide from you. The radio will not go off until they have jumped out. Because that's exactly what I was going to bring up. The only jump scares I can think of in this game are the mannequins jumping out at you from a corner. Like that was such a like kind of like mischievous mechanic that they added to that specific creature for the remake where it's like you will sometimes see them just like scamper across a hallway because they're like going to another hiding place and it's just like oh what the fuck are you doing, no you get the fuck back here. But yeah.
Yeah, I would chase them. I'd be like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 you're not sneaking up on
Yeah.
me.
Or
I'll
like
chase them.
like I'm about to get back into the prison and when they start climbing on the walls and the ceiling is so high that you can't see where they go. It's just like, oh geez, not this.
I don't remember what the circumstances were, but when I got to the prison, it was one of those like I'm right about at that point where it's like, am I gonna call it for the night? I'm like, I got to a new area, let's check it out a little bit.
Hmm.
And It's not very far in. Like you go in and there's the little chapel and then you go back and there's the cell block and I went in there and you turn on the light switch and you just see for the first time, right, two mannequins sort of like skitter up the walls, and I'm just like, yeah, we're gonna stop for the night. I will address that later. um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and other games have taught me that like sometimes, especially in a game like this, it's like just run.
Yeah.
Like just I didn't spend a lot of time killing enemies in the prison.
Yeah.
Um, I love the puzzles because first of all, I love puzzles.
Yeah.
I'm a puzzle guy. Some people get very frustrated, but I like puzzles. I've played a lot of games that make you solve puzzles, and these I thought were pretty clever, pretty good. Some of them were a little hard
Yeah.
to the point where I'm like, I'm 35 and I have like maybe 2 hours a week to set aside for video games, and I'm not going to waste it banging my head against a wall. So I just fucking Google it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I'm mad. It's
Yeah.
like, because I'm smart. I could figure this
Mhm.
out if I wanted to, but I want to keep playing.
Yeah.
So I've done that. I did that a couple
How
times.
often how often did you Google it and you discovered, oh, there are actual multiple right answers here, and I was banging my head against the wall trying to figure out what was the one specific right answer?
I would say the one that really, really kerfuffled me the most was actually the prison.
Oh yeah, the gallows
Um,
puzzle.
Yeah, the gal. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
You know, and
it's
and my
intense.
my big my big fear was, oh no, should I have been paying like super close attention to everything here?
Oh yeah.
Because I thought like, oh man, is this like I have to know everyone's story and oh God, like
Yeah.
so that was sort of my initial sort of oh shit moment with
Mhm.
that. But yeah, I mean like I navigated the level fine and
Mhm.
I like just sort of couldn't get to the weights, the little weight
Yeah.
bullshit. I love that stuff. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I got this. Like
Mhm.
so that was fine. It was, I couldn't figure out how to get the gallows to work. And then I figured out like, oh, it's not actually a huge
Yeah.
thinker. I enjoyed putting the poems together.
Yeah.
That was fun,
Yeah.
figuring out which ones go with what.
Well, and something I learned after like playing it a few times, those poems are actually randomized. Uh,
Oh, really?
like each poem has like there are six poems total, and each poem has one. Like if we think about like stanza A and stanza B, each of the poems has one stanza A, but they have like two stanza Bs that can pop up depending on your playthrough, and it's randomized every time. So like there's on my playthrough there's a poem that's talking about like the I think it's talking about like a character and their mother, and in my playthrough, it said that like I had to kill her because of what she did to me, like the way that she tortured my life or something like that. And when Cleo played it, it was a completely different ending to that poem where it was like an accident or like I did it because I wanted to have fun or something. And I'm like, those are two very different poems. So on top of like them already being in this kind of like archaic poetic language, it's like, oh, depending on your playthrough, it may be the answer is not going to be the same. So like, fuck you, people making walkthroughs.
It's called rhyme and meter, Ian, and,
Well,
and it
yes.
is not archaic yet.
I should have said esoteric.
I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
I'm very I'm very old school. I was such a pariah in
Yeah.
college. Like, I don't know, I like when they rhyme. Get
No,
out.
I think I
Bad
was
enough you play sports.
I think I was speaking more to the language. Like it's very poetic language that
I
they
I'm
go. Yeah.
I'm just it's me. I'm
I know.
just being
Yeah.
dick.
I know.
But so my last sort of thing I wanted to just comment
Yeah.
on was something I actually said. It's funny actually, how it comes full circle here, on your podcast Matter of Taste with our
Yeah.
other dear friend Michael
Really
Fioravella.
quick for
Um,
people who did listen to a matter of taste, because there are a few people in the chat who did. Vic, you may recall from being a guest several times and also a like fill-in co-host for a few episodes when Theo
I
wasn't.
forgot about
Yeah, no, I was looking up our old episodes just to make sure I like which episodes was he? I know he was on the video game one, but was he on any others? And there was like our game of Cthulhu Gloom that we released as a bonus episode. There was the I think it was the season 3 finale. Did we have you on? Um, uh, and
Dude, I
then
don't
of
remember.
Hannibal, I think it was the Hannibal season 3 finale. And then there were a couple episodes I was like, oh, it was like the first note in the show notes was like, Vic is filling in for Theo this week. I'm like, oh, that must have been when like Theo had his car accident or something. Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say like that was it must have been like 13 years ago.
No, don't say
Um,
that.
oh no, it's okay. I already said this in the chat, and I've referenced it several times to Sarah, my wife,
Mhm.
since I said it. Where I'm like, hey, the last 10 years only count as 3 years.
Okay. No, that I
Okay,
like
like
that.
the
I like
last
that
10,
math.
yeah, oh yeah, no, that's we all know this. So anyway, it was a while ago, but we were talking about The Last of Us, the first one, which I
Oh
actually
yeah.
played on PS3 and liked, and then never played any of the various re-releases or sequel.
Hmm.
But anyway, that's irrelevant. Um, so at the end, I rushed in to rescue Ellie or
Hmm.
whatever, and I shot all the doctors.
Yeah.
You know, they were
Spoilers for
gonna
The
kill
Last
her.
of Us.
You know, spoilers for what I did.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, later, I discovered that I wasn't forced to do that. Like it
Yeah.
was a purely emotional response. That's just what I chose to do,
Hmm.
and that's why I honestly think video games are perhaps one of the best ways to experience horror because you're a participant, not a passenger, and the real dread that you feel when exploring and the real emotions you feel about the story, I think are a huge deal. You know,
Hmm.
I care way more. I care way more about horror in video games. You know, I love horror movies a lot.
Hmm.
You know, but you know, you're at their mercy where it's like, you know, they have to deliver it well. You
Yeah.
know,
You're there for the ride.
whereas yeah, whereas in the video game, it's like, you know, you're the one who's having the experience.
Hmm.
Um, I I genuinely wanted James to suffer
Mm.
before I knew why,
Hmm.
right? Like I didn't know what exactly was going on, but I was like, I really want him to not come out of this um possibly at all. You know, and but yeah, before I knew what he did, I knew it was bad and I that's why the I want Silent Hill to consume him. You know, like
Mm.
I don't want him to leave. Like I want this to be it for him. So, you know, and what's funny about that is in that way, Silent Hill almost kind of becomes the hero. You know, is Silent Hill evil?
Yeah.
Um, so that's so yeah.
That is another big debate in the fandom where a lot of people like to think of the power of the town as like a lot of people criticize the interpretation of the town as like, oh, it's a lot of people like to think it's like some sort of supernatural therapist or something. It's not that. It's like it's weirder than that, or like some people have interpreted Silent Hill 2 specifically as like maybe from the moment you start the game, James is in purgatory. Like he's already driven his car into the lake, and what he's experiencing is a version of purgatory or hell in that sense.
So
Yeah.
I'm still like perfectly fine with hell being a thing in stories
Hmm.
because I find it interesting for many reasons. I really feel like we have to put purgatory in timeout.
Uh,
Like I'm so exhausted, you know, where it's
mhm.
like if I'm not sure what this place is or what it means, it's purgatory.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
I get that.
um,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. When I think of because at this point I've played enough of them, and we've got a new one coming out
Yeah.
that's not in America, and everyone's interested in that. I almost kind of think of it as Silent Hill may have been a real place at one point, or maybe in some universes it is, and some it isn't.
Hmm.
But I always kind of thought of it as like a pocket dimension,
Uh,
as it's a place that exists here at the same time and doesn't, it's a parallel plane.
Yeah.
Like going into the Shadowfell and coming back. You're
Yeah.
in the same spot but not.
I mean, I feel like the Duffer Brothers, the makers of Stranger Things, they specifically cited Silent Hill and the other world as being a big inspiration for the Upside Down. So I think that's very much in alignment with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense. So and I was going to make a comment about Stranger Things, but we
It's
don't
all
have
good.
time for that. Um, but um, but anyway, the early seasons were good. But yeah, no, I don't know. I love the series. I'm glad that you got me into it. And I actually, well, and who knows when we'll get around to it, but we talked about possibly like sort of workshopping our own idea for a Silent Hill story.
Oh yeah,
Um, and I love that. I would love to do that.
yeah,
And the stuff we were chatting about, I thought was really interesting, just because, not in the fan fictiony sense of like, well, I want to write a story with James in it because I want his ending to be my ending.
mm,
No, I mean like just taking the concept of this place and what's another character we can put here and
yeah,
how would we do what this place does to that person.
yeah,
I think it would be a fun toy to play with,
mm,
and that's something to this series credit is I think it gave us some really neat stuff, some neat ideas.
yeah.
Um,
And it's interesting to see the way that different developers have taken that idea and ran with it, to the chagrin of many purist fans, because particularly when it comes to the first three games, the development of those games seem to be so much affected by the like reviews and the messages that Konami were getting sent about what people seem to like or dislike about the games. Like the first Silent Hill, everyone was like, "Oh, this game is so scary." So like, okay, make a second one. Team Silent goes in a completely different direction than the first game. It's no longer about the cult and like cosmic horror and stuff, and it's much more a personal human character story. And at the time, a lot of people seemed to be like, "Wait, this isn't just a sequel to the first Silent Hill game. What the fuck?" And then that Silent Hill 3, they were going to do another completely different game, but Konami was like, people didn't like it when you did a different thing. Go back to the first game story. And so Silent Hill 3 is a direct sequel to the first game, but it's also kind of taking the concept of the first game and looking at it through another personal story of Heather discovering who she is and like where she came from and her relationship with her father. And then you've got all like Silent Hill 4 goes in another direction. And then you've got the Western developed games. It's interesting. One of the things I specifically wanted to talk about, because I think was Downpour the first Silent Hill game I lent to you.
you didn't lend it to me.
Oh,
I came to visit you for like a weekend,
mhm.
and we crushed that fucking game
Oh, that's
in
right.
one weekend. Yeah, we
Oh my
played it.
gosh, I forgot
Yeah,
that.
we played it wall to wall until it was done.
Holy crap. Um, but yeah, like Silent Hill Downpour, out of like all the other games in the series, is the only game that kind of like really I want to say it tries to do what Silent Hill 2 does, but not in the sense that it's like doing the exact same thing, but in the sense that Silent Hill 2 removes itself in certain ways from Silent Hill 2 isn't concerned with the mythos that's created by other games with the cult and like these gods and all that sort of stuff. And aside from Shattered Memories, which is like a complete reimagining of the first game, Downpour is the only other game that's like we're making another just character driven story that has nothing to do with the cult, and I'm interested. Like I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but I'm kind of interested what what your thoughts are on it. Thinking of Downpour in that context as like, oh, this is another character driven story, because for me, Downpour for whatever reason. I just never really. I feel like part of the reason that game doesn't work for me in certain ways is I never really connected with the protagonist. Um,
That's kind of the first thought I had was I liked Downpour, but I couldn't even tell you much about the
yeah,
protagonist. I feel like they didn't do a lot from the start to make you to do the protagonist thing and make
yeah,
you root for him. It was just kind of like this is your entry point to the game, and
Yeah.
that's another symptom of being a game that's on its like fifth entry is, we know you're here for Silent Hill. You're not here for this character. You would play whether it was this character or a different one,
Mm,
like, so earning that and making us actually care about the character might be harder at that point.
yeah.
Um, as far as it being, I agree. Like, yeah, now that you mention it, it does kind of have the Silent Hill 2 quality of this is sort of doing its own thing. And it's more about this place having sort of a mind and personality of its own,
Hmm.
forcing this character to go through something personal. Um, and as far as the cult, I'll be honest. And again, I've played most of the games.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not super interested in the cult
I
stuff.
like it as
You
a
know,
I like it as a backdrop, and at least in like Silent Hill 3, I think it in Silent Hill 3, I feel like it takes the stage in a balanced way, where like there's all this like occult stuff going on, and Claudia's like, oh, you will lead us to paradise with blood-stained hands, and speaking all these like she's talking very archaically with like all this occult stuff, and Heather the whole time is just like, you killed my dad, I want you to die. And so in that way, I feel like Heather as a character does a really good job of like kind of confronting the cult stuff in a way that feels more like I can connect with more as a player, where it's like, yeah, it
sure.
like
Yeah,
her character story is a little bit more grounded than, and like I don't want to say more grounded than the first game, because Harry in that sense also his story is very grounded. He doesn't care about any of the cult stuff either. He's like, my daughter is missing, I want to find her. But yeah, it's like I think for me at least the occult stuff works best as like the set dressing, not the main focus.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, cult stuff can be interesting, but for me, it's like I just feel like it's sort of disappointing where it's like I would rather Silent Hill be its own thing that's just beyond us.
Mm,
When it's like, oh well, it's actually because there's these old gods and this cult has sort of coaxed them into coming here and doing all this shit. It's like, because then I can fix it. We can just kill all that. Like you know
yeah,
what I mean. Like I want it to be something. It's its own thing.
yeah.
And I can't. You know, it's indestructible.
Yeah, and I
It
think
is
that
what
that
it is.
seems to be the direction that they're going with with like the way they portray it in the remake with what it looks to be doing in Silent Hill F, since it's in Japan now. It's not even in the town of Silent Hill, and also with
Yeah,
the short message. Like, uh, I want to wrap up soon, so I don't want to get too deep into it. I like the story of the short message. I think it's a little clumsy in its storytelling in certain ways. Like some of the dialogue is a little bit like I feel overwritten, but like they introduced this
yeah,
concept of the Silent Hill phenomenon, which is kind of a cheesy thing to call it. But I like this idea that we're kind of trying to remove it from just like, oh, it's this cult that made this thing happen and that's why all this is happening. It's more like, no, this is more of a supernatural phenomenon that is harder to pin down, and it can happen anywhere. It could happen to you.
yeah, yeah. I know there's a better example in this, but in Doom Patrol, there's the living town
Mm,
that can move, from
yeah,
place to place. And it's that's kind of the way I look at it. Is like I said, pocket dimension, but not exactly elsewhere.
yeah,
Like it's here, but it can decide to just plop right on top of your town,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're going in and out of the other world.
Hmm.
Um, that to me is cool. I'd like to see that be more of a
Yeah,
thing. But I think they what one of the reasons they can just keep coming out with Silent Hill games is like, well, as long as you can come up with a character that's intriguing and a story that we're interested in seeing unfold about them, yeah, then you
yeah,
can just keep doing this. The monsters are always sort of related to the character and what's going on.
yeah.
Um, it's like I said, I sent you that one text where I was like, I'm by no means an expert on this series, but I just kind of get the sense that a lot of these games are about someone trying to work through something, like they can't let go of something, they can't move past something, and Silent Hill sort of forces them to face it in just these grotesque,
Yeah,
shocking ways, you know?
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, that's just generally my takeaway, and that's why I think it's neat.
yeah,
That's why I think it's neat that it's like, I would love to come up with my own character and see how that works.
yeah.
Um, so
And
so
like,
yeah.
again, like I'm gonna try and keep this quick, but like to kind of like piggyback on that, I think it's also I do agree with people when like I don't think that Silent Hill really has a motivation behind it. I don't think it's moralistic in that sense. Like it's definitely forcing you to go through this shit, but it's not saying like so that you can go to heaven or so that you can go to hell. It's more of just like no, you're going through this. Like specifically in James's case, it's like you're going through this because that is what your brain is telling you you need to go through. Like if James felt no guilt about what he did to Mary, I don't think that Silent Hill would do anything to him necessarily. It's because he feels guilty about it that he goes through what he does in this game.
It almost makes me wonder, like, what else could you do with this sort of thing? And this is
Yeah.
we should really stop now because we're
Yeah.
gonna go on a whole different.
Yeah, this
But
is
I mean,
this
like, like we talked about Laura, how she wasn't seeing monsters.
mhm,
It's like she should have been seeing something,
mhm,
because then that sort of begs the question: does Silent Hill only exist to torment people who are guilty?
mhm.
It has no other effect on anyone else. Like
Yeah.
that's interesting. But it's interesting to think
Yeah.
about.
But
But
yeah, I think that is where we're going to have to wrap things up. Um,
yeah,
uh,
1 hour,
yeah, but
solid.
dude, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really fun. It's
Thanks
also
for having me.
yeah, it's so fun to hear people's different perspectives on things, particularly when it comes to this game. Because I think like I've said it on stream before. Cleo's said it in her commentaries and stuff. Is like I think there are certain things that you said about this game that I fully disagree with, but I think they are valid interpretations of the game. And I think that is one of the things that is great about this game in particular is like it's almost like I think I've said this before on stream. It almost feels like a Rorschach test in that way, where it's like, uh, do you think is James a bad guy? Honestly, I think that's up to you as a viewer. The same way, like if you read a piece of literature and it presents you with a complex situation, it's not necessarily going to tell you like, hey, this character is a bad dude. It's more like, hey, here are the facts. What do you think about this character? And that's one of the reasons I really appreciate this game in particular out of the entire series, and why I think it's had so much staying power is because people get into debates on the Reddit over like, no, James, he faced his guilt, and like Mary forgives him in the Leave ending, so it's fine. Then you've got other people that's like, nah, he's a fucking asshole and he should be punished even more for what he did. And I think and the like and it's also like the care we talked about before, the care that they put into like the details, those little things that seem like they could be just little stupid details or Easter eggs, but can carry so much weight. It encourages that sort of deep dive into like what is this story actually about, how do you actually feel about it, and it challenges you in the way that really good literature can. It's like what constitutes like what justifies killing a person, what can you forgive them for, and what can't you forgive them for. And I like again I'm just waxing poetic at this point, but like I love this game and I'm glad that you really
You
enjoyed
you
it.
have a you have a whole you have a whole like thing show here about
Yeah,
Silent Hill. You can wax poetic.
yeah. But yeah, thank you again, man, so much for being on.
Thank you. I miss podcasting. I love this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So anytime. So it was a pleasure. And thank you for getting me into this series.
yeah. I apologize that we didn't pay too much attention to chat. I know I saw Cleo had some comments like when we were talking about Wikipedia at the beginning. She said, "When they stop footnoting every sentence, I'll stop using it." When we were talking about being in support of Wikipedia. Um,
Oh, I see that now. I
yeah,
wasn't even watching this back,
yeah.
but
No,
I mean,
I was catching a little bit of it, but I didn't want to break your flow, but yeah. Also, when we were talking about Cronenberg, there's that movie poster called Existence, or like there's one of the movie posters that I think it's called like Disappearance or it's something that Cleo Guest was like referencing the movie, like the David Cronenberg movie Existence. Yeah, Non-Existence is the one that you find in the game. And then yeah, she also brought up that In Water might be used as the canon ending in the novelization of Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, I saw that. Now, like I said, I didn't have this chat up, but
Yeah.
I pulled it up now. I can
Mm-hmm.
see. We don't have to get into it. But remember, I actually screenshotted every movie poster.
Yes, you did.
Uh, I sent you all of them, and I'm
It's
like,
okay, Cleo.
I bet this means stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I like immediately I was like, your English teacher bells are gonna go off when you see Return to Owl Creek Bridge.
Yeah,
Like that short story is taught in like every high school English class. I feel like.
yeah. I that was fun to me.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun because for so many of the hints are like very subtle.
Hmm.
And in the movie theater, the posters, it's like, come on,
Yeah.
they're hitting you over the head, you
Mhm.
know. So
Yeah.
that was fun.
Okay.
Um,
Uh, we need to call it there. I think what I'm gonna do is I'll put things back on the waiting screen essentially because I have to use the bathroom, and then when I come back, I'll be playing the video game. Vic, thank you again for hopping on and having this conversation. Do you have like any social media or anything that you want people to follow you on? I feel like you aren't that sort of person, but I wanted to make sure I.
I this is when I would have plugged my old podcast, but
Okay,
nah.
it's all good.
um, Anyone could reach me through you,
Yes.
because I don't have anything at the moment going on, but
Okay.
who knows? Maybe I will eventually have something.
Okay.
So.